Desert Wanderers, Chapter 14. Magan's steps rang off the familiar clack of her heels. It had been almost 2 weeks since the pack had split up. And Magan managed to visit Sarah... Jesus Christ. Magan managed to visit Sarah almost every day. Since the split... Sarah... Stop it, key girl. Let's start over. Chapter 14. Magan's steps rang off the familiar clack of her heels. It had been almost 2 weeks since the pack had been split up, and Magan managed to visit Sarah almost every day. Since the split, Sarah, Cecily, and Owen weren't given any missions. All three tried to assign themselves to a few open missions. Immediate denial. Truly immediate, as if a person's only job was to respond to them. Probably that bitch Rosalind. In the meantime, Sarah began to study in the library of Krona City. Martial arts, war tactics, histories of Gaia, and politics. Every day a new subject unfolded before her. Most of all, she tried to study flame hearts. This proved the most difficult of all to find any information on. She scrounged a single book on the subject, a new text, not one that survived the trip from Earth. Those always held more reliable information. The ratty thing was so unhelpful that it labeled flame hearts as legends. With what little was written in the book, she understood why the authors considered them fantasies. Supposedly, the flame hearts appeared after humanity came to Gaia. So it could only be a new text. Keep going. Without flame hearts, humans couldn't communicate with Chaspter, whatever that meant. Chaspter's auras had the same shape as flame hearts, though it was constant. Along with this strange communication were the abilities Sarah had, but amplified to Subject X's degree of power. Labeling them legends made sense. How could anyone believe this nonsense unless they were this nonsense? Subject X was another difficult subject to research. All sightings of him were well documented, yet no one knew where he disappeared to for 10 years. Reports claimed a dozen sightings in all that time before kidnapping Chris Jen. Never any violence. Never a word spoken. All of the other subjects the monster ranted about were even more elusive. If those beings did exist, then Sarah wasn't looking in the right places. Except, of course they existed. A man with aura like X's tried to communicate her a week before the attack of Dolos. He stretched his hand and aura out towards her, before Owen interrupted the meeting. Would be nice of him to try contacting her again. Then she could put the damn books down. The only subject she could find any information on was L. Not that anyone called it a subject. X accidentally tattled. Subject L was the Gnat. But why? Why X and L? Both men appeared 10 years ago, within the same 3-month period, in fact. While X was destroying Cronus, the Gnat was probably already headed for Meta City. Her heart quickened. X spoke of L only once, but his tone suggested he'd actually met the monster. L began terrorizing Metis just 3 months after X because the monster had been there. If that were true, then there was a pretty obvious naming system in place and implied that there were at least 20 others. Impossible, right? 20 more? The planet would have crumpled. X only mentioned 3 others anyway. Not well over a dozen, so which one was it? Chris said X was named after his obsession with the character, but right before she died, she also told Sarah that she had lied about many things about him. Notably, the X's that covered the monster's clothing had easily been discarded. It was clear he held no affection for the symbol. Not only that, but if the Gnat was L, which she was certain he was, then his weapon was conveniently the same shape as his namesake symbol. Since it was clear this was one of the lies Chris told of Subject X, Sarah had to wonder just what those others were. Was anything true? Unfortunately, Sarah had to pack all that away as Magan approached her hiding spot in the tightest corner of the library. Sitting on the floor behind the tail end of the bookshelf, she should have been hidden. Somehow, Magan Sev's eyes saw all. Usually, Sarah welcomed the woman's cheery attitude and platitudes. Not this time. Sarah had been summoned to the Council of 12, which she ignored. Magan was kind. She was working hard to have a place in Sarah's heart as a friend. But she was the Council's creature. What they did to the prisoners in Meta City, unforgivable. No matter how kind she or the Council acted, there could be no trust. These were the players behind the scenes. She couldn't let herself become close with any of them. Magan's heels almost clacked past her hiding spot. Almost. They stopped for half a second, then moved towards Sarah. With a smile slathered on her face, she rounded the corner. Of course, the woman was dressed like high noon, the best clothes for the best time of day. Surprisingly, the woman was not alone. Even more surprisingly was who accompanied her. Rosalind Caros stood 2 paces behind Megan. Expressionless, she waited. Megan smiled brighter and nestled with the silence brought on by her heels becoming static. Dust drifted through the light slats. Were they waiting for her to speak? She didn't. My darling Sarah, here you are. We've been looking for you for almost an hour. An edge slanted around Megan Sev's eyes. Megan Sev's. Weren't you aware you had a meeting with the Council of 12 today? Sarah turned her attention to her current research paper. I've been here since dawn. Once you get on the premise, the communicator is automatically silenced. Rosalind snatched the bound papers from her hands. Don't play stupid and get up. You can show some respect for a busy woman like me coming down here in the middle of the day when I should be eating lunch. I certainly don't want more than an hour of my time wasted finding a petulant young woman. Sarah stood up and curtsied for the woman. She scoffed. Very funny. She tossed the bound paper over the bookshelf as she began to walk towards the entrance of the building. What was it Sasha Dov called you? That's right, feisty. He was way off base. The 2 other women followed her as she continued. Sarah struggled. For a moment, her knees locked in place after the hours of crisscrossing. Rude would be a much better adjective. The 3 carried on to a more occupied section of the library. 2 children of the system were chatting at a table. Amazing how alike they all were. Just like Cecily, they all wore black from head to toe. Apparently they were taught it was more professional. Whatever. Clearly that wasn't true. Cecily proved to be the most unprofessional wanderer when they had met. One pointed as the 3 walked past the rows of tables placed around the middle of the library. His eyes lit up with recognition. His face was young, probably 14 or 15. Let it be Rosalind. Sarah was beyond tired of being recognized. Celebrity was never her desire, and she hadn't changed her mind on that after receiving it. So please be excited over Rosalind. The older woman was once one of the most esteemed wanderers of all time. Even on the Council of 12, even angry, even with her age, while Megan clacked through the library, Rosalind stopped without a sound. Megan was never a fighter, but Rosalind was a true wanderer, like Owen. Suddenly, the woman turned on Sarah. So, you have nothing to say for yourself? I already told you, I've been here since dawn. Fine, keep using that ridiculous excuse. At least apologize for not only wasting my time, but insulting my intelligence. Rosalind began to rant, but Sarah was distracted by the use of her name. One of the boys whispered it, but young voices spiked when excited. Great, the boy had recognized her. At least they weren't walking up to her. Instead of listening to Rosalind, she listened to them. No, wait, that's her. I'm telling you, that's Sarah Vanis. I saw her kill Subject X. Oh, shut up. Everybody says that. It's true. Should I get her autograph? Why would you want it? What do you mean? She killed Subject X. The guy destroyed Cronus. So they say. Besides, that's it. My brother joined the Wanderers around the same time as her, and he's already killed like 12 people. She's overrated. Yeah, I guess that's true. I can't wait to join. I'll have 12 in like a month. I bet I can beat that. Sarah turned away from Rosalind in a rant. Excuse me. What? The woman replied, not used to people excusing themselves from her wrath. Sarah already walked off, a task at hand. A flicker of flame spread from the core of her aura. A few books lay on the tables, abandoned. Sarah scooped them up as she hurried past. The 2 were too busy bragging about their physical test scores to see her approach. She judged the weight of the book in her hands. It would do. The second boy turned to face her for several seconds. Confused, he almost stood up. All right. She'd given them enough warning with that. As soon as the first boy's eyes met hers, a book met his face. She'd thrown it so hard that he was knocked out of his seat. The second boy helped him up. What's wrong with you? By then, she was on them. She brought the second book across his face, a backhand swing that connected with a crack. He cried out, but the impact wasn't strong enough to knock him off his feet, too. He stumbled back a few paces, but puffed out his chest. What are you doing? Sarah glared at the two until they lost their posturing. Once they realized they weren't scaring her, she spoke. Sit down. They exchanged looks. I'm not going to wait. She pawed the table for another book while locked on them. The 2 took their seats. The first boy glared at her as he picked up his seat to do so. Blood rushed over his lips and tears broke the stream of red. The other boy only had one tear welling up. You 2 are children. She said it as an insult, not a fact. If you have to kill someone, I hope it doesn't change you like it did me. Because you won't be children anymore. She took a deep breath. And don't think if a book makes you cry that you're anywhere near ready for joining the Wanderers. She dug in her pocket to slap some zenny on the table. Go get your nose checked up on. Both women awaited her, shock etched on their faces. Whoops, she'd gone a little too far, huh? Her fire was starting to flicker out, and when Megan Sev yanked her behind a bookshelf, all of her usual happiness drained. Her flame was snuffed out. Have you lost your mind? Megan asked, as she shoved Sarah into the bookshelf. leather bindings and wood slats dug into her back. Ouch. A few books clattered to the floor. That was assault. I was just doing my duty as a desert wanderer. Megan sucked in a deep breath, ready to lay into her, but Rosalind placed a hand on her shoulder. In what way? Her voice was soft, not like her typical mood. Being a desert wanderer isn't only about arresting people. It's also about setting an example for the people and helping them in other ways. Owen rubbed off on her too much. She spoke exactly like him now. Those kids, they were talking about how they couldn't wait to kill people, and under wanderer law, it would be perfectly legal. Sarah, that's only talk. That's how those children of the system types are, Megan said. Yeah, exactly, idiot. Was it only talk when Cecily was going to let me get killed on our first mission together? If this is the way the system teaches them to act and think, then something is wrong with the system, Sarah challenged. Another big breath and another interruption from Rosalind. Meg, I really do appreciate your help in finding Sarah, but perhaps you should go back to your daily duties. Meg and Seb moved away as she nodded. She tucked her hair behind her ears, sniffed, and pulled her skirt down. Okay. She began to leave, but before going, added, Snow of Krona is waiting for you in the HQ's hospital, so is that boy you called in a favor for. Sarah didn't expect that at all. After all that anger, she actually came through with the favor. Her mother would have held onto that information for months. She was going to thank the woman, but Rosalind interrupted again. I'll take her to them. With that, Meg and Sev left. Huffy, her steps clacked even louder. Rosalind ignored Sarah, picking the books off of the ground. With that done, she turned towards the doors. Let's go. Snow of Krona is awaiting for you. Sarah rounded the corner after the woman. The boys left. One of the librarians cleaned blood off the table. Tight, aggressive circles, as her eyes darted away from Sarah. Ooh, sorry, lady. It had been hours since she'd been outside, so even the winter's duller sunlight managed to pierce her green eyes. When she adjusted, Rosalind was staring at her. When we first met, you acted like an idiot. Oh. What else could she say? She'd really let Sarah have it. Others have agreed with me on that. It's obvious why, too. It's not like you have ever done anything exceptionally foolish, but you haven't done anything to dissuade these feelings either. It's because you really are rude, feisty. She rolled her eyes at the word. This lack of tact or control that you carry yourself around with, it makes you come across as ignorant. Duly noted. But you aren't ignorant. In fact, I agree wholeheartedly with your sentiment. You expressed it there. She headed for her personal carriage. How do you suppose we fix the situation? Stop making people pay to join the Wanderer program, she replied as she trailed the woman. It gives those in it a sense of superiority. Rosalind opened her carriage back door, waving inward. Get in. Rosalind climbed in after Sarah. Cushions and draped windows awaited them. It jostled under her weight for a moment. That's a lovely idea. She slammed the door. But how do we pay for the tutelage these students would be receiving? The housing, the meds, the books, the maintenance of the buildings they study in. These things add up. She waved Sarah on. The carriage took to the streets, bumping over brickwork. Quickly, impatient as ever. Raise taxes. Simple, Rosalind said, but ineffective. Almost 40% of people outside the cities don't follow our laws. That number drops to a scant 7% in the cities, but considering most of the planet's population lives in them, that number is deceptively large. Raising taxes would only anger those who are already overtaxed to cover the cost of those who don't. 40%. That doesn't even count those that live outside the jurisdiction of the DW government, like the nomads, gypsians, Castellians, and until recently Metis City's army. We are barely surviving the fallout of the Gerada, and it isn't because of the Wanderers. The air became stuffy, but Sarah wasn't going to open a window or interrupt. Wouldn't that be rude? The DW supplies... Oh, wait. I think... Oops. The DW supplies our planet with only 20% of the food that we consume every year. The Gypsians support themselves, while we get a menial amount of food from the nomads and Castellians. The majority of our food comes from off-planet trades. We generate most of our power from power cells traded to us. The rest, Chaspter oil. Rosalind spoke like a teacher. Every sentence was punctuated to get the point across. Not that she needed to. This kind of information didn't come to your door. Rosalind was spilling secrets. She continued, the occasional bump tossing her head against the cushioned seat. You might think the greatest export would be our Gaian wood or relics. You would be wrong. It's been almost 16 years since the DW had any Gaian wood, and we find less and less relics every year. No, our greatest export for the last 15 years has been our population. What? That couldn't be true. That would be awful. The stuffiness vanished as shivers went down her arms. Were the Wanderers all just tools to the Council of 12? The Gerada have never stopped attacking humanity. Rosalind continued, oblivious to the horror she inflicted on Sarah. They just stopped attacking Gaia. Light years away, they continue to kill humanity. Of course, our populace will never know that we shipped soldiers off who never signed up for this war. Rosalind pointed out the window with her hand. Nothing particular stood out. Only Crota City stood where she pointed. This city was built off their backs. Soon the whole planet's back will bear the burden, unless I do something about it. Not the city's back, the people's. All dressed up for the ball that was still weeks away. It wouldn't matter if they knew. They wouldn't care if they did. The horror wouldn't dawn on them like it did her. Many wouldn't, many would, she said. But none of them know, and they won't know until HQ is certain that they have complete control over the planet. Who of HQ? Most of the council, many of the people who work in the HQ buildings, even some who don't, Rosalind said. I intend to take these people from power if I can. I hope to replace them with like-minded individuals. I've already begun work on this 40 years ago. It's hard work, time-consuming work. I'll be dead long before my plans come to fruition. You won't be. What would you have me do? So Sarah was to be a tool of the council too. Evil. All of them. Rosalind included. Lobby your popularity to join one of the lesser councils. One that runs the other factions of the Desert Wonders. Somehow the powers that be were not content with policing Gaia. You could easily be on the council that's forming for food service. With my connections and the love that people have for you for killing Subject X, we could get you on the council of 12 very quickly, she said. Well, 10 years, perhaps. I don't want that. Determined, she shifted towards Sarah. I was first interested in you when you said you wanted to stay on as Owen's pupil. He's taught many wanderers before you. None of the rest have caught on to his ideas quite like you. What you said about helping as well as arresting was something Owen wrote in a thesis paper when he first joined. He called it a desert hunting ground. It conflated modern-day wanderers to hunters, to bring to the Council of Twelve's attention the cruelty we're capable of. I believe it brought back the popularization of calling groups of wanderers packs, she said. You've learned quite a bit from Owen Welland. You could learn so much more from me. About politics, I presume. About politics and much more. I would be eager to teach you all and anything I know about fighting as well, Rosalind said. If you are to ever join the Council of 12, you'll have to be a renowned fighter. In my early years, I studied weapons, swords, daggers, even guns. But I learned you can't always fight with your weapon of choice. I learned of scars and others as well. My favorite was the needle and wire, actually. An obvious ploy. Whether a ploy is obvious or not does not matter, only that it works. It's not going to work. You would choose to let me die, my work squandered without a successor. You'll find another. Not like they'd grown close over the year. I fear that I will not. I'm not like you and Owen. I'm not a true wanderer. I don't belong in a building deciding how others live their lives. I belong in the field fighting, preferably hunting down those lost subjects. There's more subjects, Rosalind. There's more subjects. Rosalind acted well. The question came out so stunned. That's fine, she said, disappointing but fine. Rosalind shook her head. You believe yourself something other than a wanderer. I am a warrior. Darling, I met plenty of warriors before they died out. You certainly don't look like one. It's not my looks that make me one. Warrior or not, it's your status I need. I can't find another. Right. Her status. A tool. What was it she said just 10 minutes ago about trusting the council? A pit of snakes, waiting to tear her apart? Still, if she committed to this, then she could use it to her advantage. Get answers. Be the mongoose. Fine, I'll do it. In time. But only if you help me in return. That would depend upon the request. Eventually, I'm going to ask the Council of 12 to find these lost subjects you allegedly know nothing of. She rolled her eyes. When I do, I'll need your support. After I apprehend the subjects, I'll join your cause. Sarah said this as they came to the DW hospital. Came up to it. If I do that, my fame will be astronomical. Oops. If I do that, my fame will be astronomical. I'll be unstoppable in any election. Rosalind sat, deciding for some time, keeping Sarah waiting with her. She could have denied her for doing that, if she was in any worse of a mood. Finally, the woman replied, I shouldn't agree to this. But she nodded her agreement all the same. They put out their arms to shake. With the shake complete, Sarah stepped out of the carriage and into the hospital. She spoke to a receptionist, who told her where to find Snow. Strangely, the girl wasn't alone. Sitting next to her bed, awaited Sasha Dove.